Have you ever noticed how silence can sometimes speak louder than words? Especially as we grow older, there is a deepening wisdom that whispers, "Not everything needs to be shared." Imagine this: a quiet evening, your favorite chair by the window, the hum of life outside fading as your thoughts drift inward. You've lived a full life, one filled with laughter, heartache, victories, and the lessons only time can teach. And now, at this stage, you feel the pull to open up, to tell the stories and secrets you've held for years. But here is a gentle question: what if some of those truths are best left unsaid? Not because you're hiding, not because you're ashamed, but because you've earned the right to choose what parts of yourself you give away and which parts you keep just for you. This video isn't about secrecy or walls. It's about protection of your peace, of your dignity, of the delicate threads that hold your family together. It's about recognizing that full transparency isn't always the kindest or wisest choice. Sometimes, holding a piece of your story close is the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for the ones who love you. Today, we're diving into 5 powerful things you may want to keep private after the age of 65. These are not hard rules, but gentle suggestions shaped by the stories of people just like you. People who've walked this path and learned that vulnerability, while beautiful, must also be measured. We'll explore the quiet ache of old regrets, the unspoken tension that health concerns can create, and the ripple effects of family conflict. We'll reflect on the weight of financial conversations and how too much detail can shift relationships in ways you never intended. You'll meet folks like Harold, Clara, and Margaret, who discovered the freedom that comes from staying silent and the peace that follows. By the end of our time together, you may see your own life differently, not with fear or doubt, but with a sense of clarity, of empowerment, of grace. Because aging doesn't mean giving everything away. It means learning what's worth holding on to. So stay with me. Listen closely. What we uncover might not only change how you relate to others, but how you care for yourself in the quiet moments that matter most. First, the quiet weight of regret. There's something about stillness, those quiet, reflective moments when the world slows down, that invites the past to visit. Maybe it's a song that sparks a memory, or the way the sunlight falls on a familiar path. Suddenly, you're back in a moment you thought you'd forgotten, a choice you didn't make, a path you didn't take, a word you never said. Regret has a way of showing up when we least expect it, doesn't it? And as the years go by, that pull grows stronger. It's natural to want to talk about it, to turn to your children or partner and say, "I wonder what would have happened if," not for pity, not to change the past, just to be seen. But here's the thing: not every regret needs an audience. When you share your reflections, they can land differently than you intended. What feels like a quiet confession to you might sound like disappointment to someone else. Your son may hear your words and question whether he was enough. Your spouse might wonder if they were holding you back. Even the gentlest musings can carry unintended weight. Take Eleanor, a vibrant woman I once met at a retirement book club. One evening, during a heart-to-heart with her daughter, she admitted she sometimes wished she'd moved to the coast when she was young, a dream she never chased. Her daughter, who'd grown up in the Midwest and loved their simple life, was stunned. For days, she wrestled with the idea that her mother had secretly longed for a life away from the one they'd built together. "I just wanted to share a piece of myself," Eleanor told me later. "I didn't mean for her to feel like it wasn't enough." That's the tightrope we walk. We long to be honest, to connect deeply. But sometimes, our regrets aren't meant to be shared. They're meant to be honored quietly, held close, woven into the fabric of who we are, not as scars, but as threads of wisdom. It's not about silence as avoidance. It's about grace. About allowing your loved ones to hold their version of the past without coloring it with your second thoughts, about keeping sacred the life you've created together, even if it wasn't perfect. So when those thoughts come, about missed chances, lost loves, or dreams deferred, pause, let them float by like leaves on a stream. Write them in a journal, whisper them in prayer, reflect on them in solitude. You don't need to speak every regret to feel whole. Sometimes, the most powerful healing comes not from telling the story, but from quietly accepting it, and then continuing to write the next chapter, with compassion for the younger you who did the best they could. Second, when not sharing protects your strength, there's a certain pride that comes with aging. The kind that isn't loud or boastful, but quietly rooted in resilience. You've weathered life's storms, raised families, navigated illness, heartache, joy. So when your knees achy after gardening, or your back twinges during a morning stretch, it doesn't shake you. It's just another reminder that this body has lived. But what happens when you mention it? You're sitting at Sunday dinner, surrounded by laughter and clinking glasses, and you casually say, "My shoulder's been a bit stiff lately." You mean it as a passing comment. Nothing urgent, just a little note in the rhythm of the day. But suddenly, forks pause mid-air, eyes narrow with concern. Questions fly. Have you seen a doctor? Maybe you shouldn't be lifting those boxes. Should we get someone to help with the yard? Before you know it, your casual comment has painted you as fragile. A small moment becomes a defining narrative, and not the one you want. That's the danger of oversharing small health concerns, not because your family doesn't care. Quite the opposite. They care so deeply that their worry can quickly become a weight. One you didn't ask for. Let's talk about Walter, a 72-year-old who's been hiking the same trail every spring for decades. Last year, after a longer than usual trek, he mentioned some hip soreness to his daughter during a phone call. She panicked. Within a week, he had 3 referrals for orthopedic specialists, a shipment of joint supplements, and a gentle but persistent suggestion to cancel his next trip. "I didn't feel injured," he told me. "But after all that, I started to wonder, am I really okay?" Her concern was love, but it changed how she saw him, and in turn, how he saw himself. This isn't to say you should keep serious health issues secret. If something truly needs attention or support, let your loved ones in. They want to help, but for the minor aches and fleeting fatigue, consider this: does sharing this help you feel stronger or smaller? Sometimes, choosing not to speak is choosing to preserve the image your family holds of you. The strong, capable version who still builds the birdhouse, dances at weddings, and lifts grandkids high into the air. Silence in this case is not denial. It's dignity. It's saying, "I know my limits, and I know my strength. I'll share what matters when it matters." You are not defined by every ache. You are defined by your life, your light, your laughter. Let those speak louder than the occasional pain. Third, choosing peace over participation. Families are beautiful, messy things. They're made of love, loyalty, old memories, and sometimes old wounds. As you grow older, you start to see the patterns. The sibling who always feels overlooked. The cousin who brings up that one incident at every gathering. The tension that hums just beneath the surface of even the happiest reunions. And when you've lived long enough, you start to see it all so clearly. You know who tends to overreact, who clings to the past, who quietly tries to hold it all together. And it's tempting, isn't it? To finally say what you've been holding back for years. To speak your truth. To call out the pettiness. To take a side. To name the elephant in the room and be done with it. But sometimes, the greatest act of love is saying nothing at all. You see, once you speak those thoughts, once you share your true opinions about who's right and who's wrong, there's no taking it back. What was once your private observation becomes public ammunition. Consider Joanne, a 70-year-old grandmother who had always prided herself on being the honest one. In the family, when her two sons began arguing over how to divide their father's tools after his passing, she finally snapped. "Your brother's right," she said. "You've always been selfish when it comes to sharing." She meant it as a wake-up call, a dose of truth to cut through the chaos. But what followed was a silence she hadn't expected. One son stopped calling. The other, burdened by guilt, pulled away too. Her attempt to fix the rift ended up widening it. Joanne later told me, "I thought I was helping, but all I did was add fuel to a fire that needed to burn out on its own." As you step into the role of family elder, you become both a witness and a keeper of balance. Your voice carries weight, sometimes more than you realize, and what feels like clarity to you can feel like criticism to someone else. This doesn't mean you have to pretend everything is fine. You don't have to lie or be fake. But you can choose your responses with care. A soft, "I trust you'll figure it out," can offer support without taking sides. A smile, a change of subject, or even a quiet exit can do more to preserve peace than a perfectly crafted opinion ever could. At this stage in life, your calm is sacred. Your wisdom is not just in what you know, but in what you choose not to say. Let your love be your legacy, not your verdict. Let them find their way, while you protect the quiet dignity of your own. Fourth, why your full financial story deserves boundaries. There's something deeply personal about money, not just the numbers, but the choices behind them. The sacrifices, the little victories, the nights you stayed up balancing checkbooks or stretching a dollar to feed a dream. Your financial life isn't just math. It's memory. It has survival. It's pride. And yet, as you grow older, people begin to ask questions. Sometimes innocently, sometimes not. Are you all set for retirement? You've probably got a good cushion, right? How much did the house go for, anyway? They're small questions, casual. But behind them often lies a subtle shift. A creeping sense that your financial picture is no longer just yours. You might feel the urge to be open, to lay it all out, to be transparent so that your children don't worry, so no one is caught off guard when the time comes. You want to be fair, to be clear, to prepare. But here's what many don't tell you when you reveal the full extent of your finances. Down to the dollar, it can change the dynamic in ways you never intended. Take Martin, a 68-year-old widower who decided to sit his kids down and go over everything: his savings, his pensions, the value of his home, even the debts he'd quietly paid off over the years. At first, they nodded with appreciation. But over the weeks that followed, things changed. One child started hinting about borrowing money. Another questioned his spending. "Do you really need that trip to Italy, Dad?" Suddenly, Martin felt less like the father and more like the family's accountant. He told me later, "I wanted to bring them peace of mind. Instead, I gave them permission to monitor my choices." Your money is your business. Yes, it's important to have clear documents. A will, a trusted power of attorney, a roadmap for what happens when you're gone. But the day-to-day decisions, the balance in your checking account, the investment you're watching bloom, or the splurge you made on a new set of golf clubs, that's yours, entirely yours. Because the truth is, even with the best intentions, money complicates things. It colors relationships. It introduces expectations, even when unspoken. And once people know the full picture, they often begin to insert themselves into it, advising, questioning, or even quietly resenting. Holding back some details isn't secrecy. It's stewardship. It's saying, "I trust myself. I've earned the right to manage this chapter my way." You can still be generous, still prepare, still love deeply, but let the numbers stay close to your chest unless sharing them brings peace, not pressure. This is your life, your legacy. Let it unfold without commentary. Fifth, when your financial decisions are yours alone, imagine a sunlit morning. You're sitting at your kitchen table, sipping coffee, flipping through the mail, and reviewing your finances. Maybe it's a savings account that's quietly grown over the years, a rental property you've carefully maintained, a recent splurge on something that brought you joy. These numbers tell a story, your story, a life of hard work, resilience, and thoughtful choices. Then comes the question, so, how much do you have saved up? It might come from an adult child, a sibling, even a well-meaning friend. Casual, curious, maybe even concerned, and you pause. Because behind that question lies more than curiosity. It opens a door, one that's hard to close again. You might feel the urge to answer honestly, to be transparent, to build trust and avoid misunderstandings down the line. And there's nothing wrong with openness. But sometimes, sharing the full scope of your financial decisions doesn't bring connection. It brings complication. Once those details are out, the air changes. Suggestions start to roll in about downsizing your home, investing in new ventures, or reallocating funds for someone else's dream. Your independence, once unshakable, starts to feel negotiable. Take the story of Lillian, a 69-year-old retiree with a passion for travel and a knack for budgeting. One night, in a moment of vulnerability over dinner, she shared with her children how she'd been planning a solo trip through Europe, a gift to herself after years of caregiving. But instead of excitement, she was met with concerned glances and a string of objections. Should you really be spending that much? What if something happens? Wouldn't it be better to use that money for the grandkids' tuition? Lillian hadn't asked for advice. She'd wanted to share her joy. But what she got was resistance and the creeping sense that her autonomy was under review. You see, money, especially in families, is never just money. It's control, it's perceived fairness, it's assumptions about your needs, your future, your priorities. And the more details you give, the more room there is for others to rewrite your story. That's why some decisions are best kept to yourself. It's perfectly okay to plan your estate, to designate a trusted executor, to leave clear instructions for when the time comes. But your day-to-day financial choices, how you spend, save, or enjoy what you've built, are yours alone. By holding these details close, you're not being secretive. You're protecting your freedom. You're saying, I've earned the right to decide how my story unfolds. Without permission, without judgment, you are the author of your financial life. Let your choices reflect not just your needs, but your joy, your spirit, and your independence. And let those choices remain, in part, just yours. Take a breath with me. Step back and look at the quiet thread running through everything we've explored today. Regrets you've carried, aches you've managed alone, conflicts you've watched from the sidelines, money you've earned and protected. Every one of these moments holds a choice, not just about what you share, but about what you keep. In a world that urges us to lay everything bare, to be transparent, to speak our truth, there is something profoundly powerful about knowing when not to. At this stage in life, you've earned the right to be selective, to hold space for your own thoughts, your own privacy, your own peace. This isn't secrecy. It's stewardship. It's saying, I trust myself to know what matters. It's the wisdom to recognize that some things, especially the deeply personal, lose their power or purity when passed around too freely. Not because others mean harm, but because they can't always understand the weight behind your words. When you choose silence in certain moments, you are not withholding love, you are protecting it. When you choose not to burden your children with every health worry, or not to sway them with old regrets, or not to open your checkbook to every family request, you're preserving something sacred, your autonomy, your dignity, your right to write your life your way. It takes strength to speak, but it takes just as much strength to stay quiet. Think back. Have there been times when you shared too much, only to watch a relationship shift in ways you never intended? A comment about your finances that made others treat you differently. A personal truth that added tension instead of trust. You're not alone, or maybe, just maybe, you've had moments where you chose to hold something back, to smile gently and say, "I'm fine." And in that pause, you found peace. You kept the power to define yourself, rather than letting others define you. That's the gift I hope you carry with you after this conversation, the knowledge that your silence can be as loving, as generous, and as meaningful as your voice. So here's my invitation: reflect. Ask yourself, what do I need to protect to preserve my peace? And if something from today's journey resonated with you, I'd love to hear it. Drop a comment below with one thing you're choosing to keep just for yourself. Something sacred, something strong, and if this message spoke to your heart, hit that like button, subscribe, share it with someone who may need this reminder. You've walked a long road. You deserve to walk the rest of it in peace. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for letting me walk beside you. Even just for a while. I'll see you in the next one.